the case we have before us is a 40B comprehensive permit for 55 SS LLC, property located at 51, 53, 55 Summer Street. And the hearing has been closed by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the purpose of tonight's meeting is to go over the draft decision that we have and really iron out things that we want to make sure are included in here and make sure that they are, so that we're protecting the interests of the residents of Walpole, the applicant, and future people that will live at this proposed development. So, what I think the best way to do is, and Amy Questle, I didn't get a chance to talk to you. I know you had a hearing, or you had a meeting right before this, but we all have the decision, the draft decision that was circulated. I think that we're probably at about the 95% solution on this. I think the issues that we have to look at are the heights of the building. I know that's going to be one that the zoning board is going to discuss tonight, and also any other wording such as police protection, make sure that we have things covered for stadium events, and anything else that board members want to bring up for the discussion. But really, what we're talking about is what we have before us in the draft decision. Does anybody have any thoughts of approaching this differently? And that goes for you, both Judy Barrett and Amy Questle.
I do not, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So the first few pages of the decision talks about the procedural history, and these are the dates. I don't think there's anything too complicated in that. It describes the project and everything. So then really, when it comes into the finding of facts, it talks about what is actually, what we've heard at the hearings. And then really, if people are okay with that, unless there's something that we need to look at in the first 6 pages of the decision, it's really starting on page 7 where we talk about conditions, and that's what the zoning board is going to allow and permit if this is approved by the zoning board. So does anybody have anything in the first few pages? Suzanne, go ahead.
I do know that I had asked Amy Amy Questle to put in that this project was, except for one hearing, was all done in pandemic, and I think that's going to go in the findings, if I'm correct.
Yes, it will. Yes, that was it. That was
I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that. I felt it was important that we put that in this, because I still don't feel public has proper representation on Zoom. There are some people that aren't able, and that's just my feeling as a human. But I did ask her to put that in, because we did do one hearing down at the senior center in public, and that's it.
Okay, so where would that go in this? Have you already drafted that in, Amy?
So I was going to put that in on page 3, number 8, where I put there was it starts with, during the hearings there was a significant public input on a number of neighborhood concerns in that paragraph. I thought I would put that all but the first hearing on March 5th was conducted during the pandemic via virtual platform.
Yeah, emergency orders under the governor or whatever. Is that okay with all the rest of the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also in that same paragraph, Amy, it says need to confirm this.
And I did.
Okay, yeah.
So I did. So everybody attended every hearing.
Right. So that was good. Okay.
I mean, I have, in those opening sections, I just have some sort of suggested line edits. I don't think we have to go through. There's nothing really substantive about it. So I can forward those separately to Amy if that's okay.
Yeah.
So we're on page 7 then? Is that where we're doing conditions then?
I guess I would just, one other thing, since we're talking about that paragraph 8, I don't know what the board's feeling is, or whether we want to summarize what those neighborhood concerns were to sort of spell out, the issues that were voiced by neighbors and the types of things that we were presented throughout. I mean, I think it helps to provide a little more context for the for it, and it doesn't have to be a multi-page thing, but I think maybe something more than saying that there was significant public input, but to hit on some of the topics that were raised might be helpful.
So for example, we could say that the board heard input from abutters and other interested persons throughout the hearing process regarding concerns about density, traffic,
safety.
I don't know if I heard anything about noise. Did I? No. Okay.
There's traffic, yeah, and the building heights, of course, was a big.
Yes, definitely.
And only one road in, the second one being gated off, so that in case of an emergency, someone's got to go down there and undo that gate. And in all likelihood, that'll end up with grass up to your knees. But whatever. I think it's worth mentioning that, because I myself don't feel satisfied one iota with this one way in and one way out.
So,
Yeah.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, that is somewhat addressed in finding number 17 on page 6, where, we did put that that the board is concerned over the fact that the proposed roadway serving the project exceeds the 750-foot maximum dead-end roadway length required under the town subdivision regulations. And I could add in there that the town and abutters.
I do feel as though it's not to beat a dead horse, but I think it's okay if we mention that from the neighbors and then mention the board findings, because I think the more clout we can put for these neighbors and the concerns that they have, that the more difficult it will be, hopefully, for them if the housing has to overrule us or whatever. I just think it's important. I agree with Bob. Whatever we could put in there to a little more meat to it would be worthwhile.
Okay, got it.
Amy, I also feel you should put the length of the road that the applicant is presenting to us.
Okay.
Is
So,
that okay?
Well, the length of the road does wrap around. So I would have to
the length of the road to the skyscrapers,
okay, I can do that. Yes.
please.
Yes, I can.
Amy,
Yes.
back on number 13 rather, about the size of the South Walpole community, where you indicate that the applicant provided documentation supporting the conclusion that water and sewer capacity, et cetera. Do you think you should add there that was reviewed and agreed to or supported by the peer review consultant?
Yes, I will. Thank you. That's a good point.
I mean, I sympathize.
Another issue would be at one of the last open meetings with the Zoom, one of the neighbors brought up the point that this would double the population down there.
Well, that's what this says.
That's
Yeah,
what I have.
that's right in 13, yeah.
Yeah.
And we got the stadium in there somewhere, so.
I mean, I just think you want to generally be careful that on the one hand, I know the board understandably feels quite a bit of sympathy for the neighborhood, but you are issuing a decision here, which if a majority of the board agrees to it, you want to make sure that you're actually defending the decision of the board as well. So, you might want to just, in going through this, forget whose side is what and just think about you as a board member, what documentation is there in the file, and can you agree or not agree with various findings that are in here?
That's a good
Thank you.
point.
Yep, it is.
So, Judy, you're exactly right, and that's where we are tonight. We're going to draft a decision, and the way I look at it is we're going to try to draft the best decision for the town of Walpole, the neighbors in South Walpole, the applicant. We're going to try to do the best we can for all concerned parties. Is everybody going to be happy? Probably not.
No.
But we're going to do the best we can. And then what's going to matter is at some point down the road, we're going to have a vote, and we're going to vote whether you think this is something that's good, and we're going to also discuss where you are tonight on that vote, so we can figure out, are there things that we can do to put conditions that might make you feel that you can come around to supporting this decision. But this is the decision of record that we're all working to. So. Okay. So does anybody have anything else? I think those are all good points that we talked about, and particularly on part number 8. Listing out, and it really would be just a list of a number of the concerns that the neighbors have raised, because we've been at this a long time, and a lot of concerns have been raised, and just put them all in there. Okay. Okay. So going over to the conditions. What's the best? What's your thought on this, Amy? How's the best way to go through this, or what do you think we should do?
So I think that the only thing that I guess the only suggestion that I have is that I just wanted to make sure that I did have Suzanne's concerns for A4, which is on my page 9. So we want to have a plan. We want to have the HOA is going to come up with a plan regarding the Gillette events that is going to be approved by the police department and also approved by the board to determine how to handle those events.
Yep.
Okay, great. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, that was my looming question from the last hearing. Other than that, in general, I need to take direction from the board. There are, I guess the ultimate, I think the ultimate question at this point might be the height of the buildings. And then the only other thing that I wanted to make sure about was the condition regarding the Boyden School. Mr. Delaney had sent me, so Mr. Delaney, Ms. Murphy, and yourself had all sent me a condition that was similar to the condition that we came up with, which was that there would be no deliveries during the Boyden School pickup or drop off in a vehicle larger than a pickup truck. So I did just also want to make sure that you guys were okay with that.
Yes, and I think we need to take a close look at that to see what the hours of operation for this for construction would be, because we want to make sure that we're not putting extra vehicles on the road at a very dangerous time. So I think what we had said was 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock was the hours for construction.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
Is there no fueling here on site? Has anybody come across that yet? No refueling?
So, I'm not sure how you can. First off, we could say that there's no refueling on the site. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe Judy can. Judy, this is very sensitive. It's drinking water. It's full of vernal pools. I'm nervous about refueling on site.
I know that was one of the conditions I kind of tried to spell out to Amy, as far as like a fueling plan being submitted to the Walpole Fire Department, and making sure that it's specified where the fueling was to be done due to the sensitivity of the project in the area that it would be established in. I think it would be personally hard to execute a project and say there's no fueling on site. I think we would be creating a limitation for the developer not to be able to conduct a lot of what they're trying to do. So, but I think something as simple as like, this is how we're gonna refuel our stuff because we are on the aquifer would certainly be reasonable for us to ask. I may be incorrect in thinking that.
No, I think that's great.
Fine.
Perfect.
Let me search and see. Yes, Mr. Delaney, that is on, I want to say it's page 15 on here, and it's
J2.
C1J, yes, exactly, J2. So, Judy's clearly much faster than me.
No, I'm just search and replace quickly, but anyway, I found it.
You can search and replace better than I can. So yeah, it's exactly it's the words that you had given me with regard to the subject to the board and the fire department site-specific safety plan, which was going to include, but not limited to, emergency contact information, the point, the response plan, sign-in area, designated employee parking area, and designated fueling areas.
That's great.
And that also linked, I believe, Amy, to what I was talking about regarding the waste disposal. And I think a lot of it might fall under a NIPD's permit or, but I'm not an environmentalist by trade, so I don't know the exact terminology. But my concern with that was that there was large containers for waste of the site, and that, you know, anyone who wasn't paying attention would be throwing anything into those containers and potentially leaching into the aquifer again. You know, this might only be something as small as, say, a PVC glue or something like that, but certainly something that should be mentioned in the condition to regulate what the developer would be mandating of anyone working on their project, as well as for the safety of the town drinking water, obviously, you know.
Right, and so that's E13, and that is on that's on page 23.
Right.
And that also, and again, it's a dumpster location and management plan. It's for approval by the building inspector prior to commencement of the work, and then it will. It also requires that all construction dumpsters shall be covered nightly to prevent the blowout of trash or debris into the aquifer. The covers shall be rain repellent to mitigate water infiltration and runoff of liquids from trash container to the aquifer also.
That's great. Thank you.
E12, Amy, while you got it out, E12 is the time change.
Oh, okay, great. So yes,
Sorry.
yes. So yes. So that is. So we have. So the exterior construction is 7 to 6, Monday through Saturday, and then the construction management plan has to take into account the Boyden School pickup and drop-off hours, and they will restrict vehicles larger than a pickup truck from passing by the Boyden School during its pickup and drop-off times. I put it in that context rather than actual times of pickup and drop-off, only because I'm not sure if the times will change during the time of construction. So for example, in the town that I live in, every 2 years, we have 5 elementary schools, and every 2 years,
We do
3
the
are
same.
early and 2
Same
are late.
here.
Okay, great.
Same
So
here.
that's why I didn't put in specific drop-off and pickup times. It's contingent upon whatever those times are. You can't be doing this. So,
So, Amy, on E12,
Yep.
do we have different hours? Because right now, the copy I have says 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. We talked about changing that to,
Yes.
so that's now 8 to 5.
correct.
Okay.
So I haven't made the change to this document yet, but I have that in my notes from 8 to 5. And then the other thing too is, so I wasn't sure, so this is, this specifically states exterior construction activities. So that means that, for example, painting crews inside, they could be there. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's okay with that they can be there longer.
So,
Well, the issue is that the traffic going in and out of the site. That's why we had these hours for the safety on the roads. I'm not sure that accomplishes the safety goal.
Okay, so then we would want to take out exterior construction
Yes.
activity
Yeah, just
and just
construct.
put construction.
It's a tough one. Kids walk right across that driveway. It's tough. I don't know what else. Judy, do you have any ideas how to do it differently? I mean, kids walk right by where the trucks are going into the entrance. I don't know.
And I'm always keeping in mind, we don't want to do something that would make the project uneconomic. And
Right.
I don't see that would make it uneconomic, so, okay. Okay. I don't like to backtrack, but I think one of the things we need to talk about, the height of the building. Can we go back to that? Because that is on.
That's a major one.
Right, so I think we need to go through that.
Yep.
So I think that would be on, I think that's A3, I want to say, yes. So that is A3.
A3.
Yep.
So I want to find out where board members are as far as, what you're comfortable with. We've talked to, the applicant proposed, well, first off, the original application was 4 stories. And as we know, the applicant reduced the footprint by going up. We've discussed in the public hearing, that's not something that the zoning board asked. We asked about more open space, and more open space was created by going up.
Right.
So the question is, we've got listed here, 5-story maximum height, 5-story maximum height with 90 apartment units for building 1, building 2, 5-story maximum height with 70 apartment units. What's the opinion of board members? Are you looking at 4 stories, 5 stories? You good with 6? Where are people at?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I am still hemming and hawing, totally. I was 5 last week until the applicant told us he feels it's going to be mostly elderly people occupying this project. If I recall, does everyone recall he said that? And that made me really go down to 4. I'm worried about the safety part of that again. I was already worried at 5, and that tipped me to 4.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
I've been back and forth on this, back and forth. Definitely 6, no. 5, I thought maybe 4. But you know what? When it comes to in my gut, I feel this is totally too dense an area. And I'm afraid that I can't support this no matter. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so you even at 4 you'd have a problem.
Yes, because I still feel as though it is a fire trap in there. I don't care if they have smoke detectors and sprinklers. The bottom line is it's a long way in, and it's one way in. Granted, there's that second road. I know I've expressed how I feel about that. The trucks to get in there in due time for wooden construction. I wouldn't want a family member there. And what I do as a board member, I look at all aspects. I don't want to be the no vote guy forever and ever and ever. But the bottom line is, I'm concerned about the safety. And as I mentioned earlier, 2 or 3 meetings ago, after those fires that happened, I know it was Lowell a lot. I watched those wooden 3-story buildings went up in a heartbeat. And it was 2, 3, 4 calls, 4 different towns. I'm trying to imagine that kind of a catastrophe, getting in and out there with people who are living there who want to get, if I was living, no matter if I wasn't in the back, if I was in one of the duplexes or in the front, I'd want to get out of there as fast as I could. So I just feel that it's too dense. I really do. I think it's a, with the exception of these buildings in the back, and if it were four, that's more palatable. I think that the set, it's, the layout is fine, but this isn't the place for it. Too narrow, too dangerous. So I really and truly, I'm not in favor of this.
Okay. I clearly hear you and understand where you're coming from on this. Bob, what's your thoughts or your take on this?
Well, I kind of went back to the sort of the local needs under 40B and how they can be weighed against the need for housing. And so the 5 categories were the environment, health and safety, design, open space, and planning concerns. And with respect to the height of the buildings, I think it comes down to this safety issue. And, I do have concerns whether it makes sense from a planning perspective to put so many units in such a small, in an area where there's effectively, but for the emergency access vehicles, there's essentially one way in and one way out. So I think focusing on the health and safety aspect is one thing, and I think James sort of laid out the considerations there that it's a long way from the road, and waiting for the emergency access vehicles to arrive and use the extra entrance. People are still going to need to vacate in the case of an emergency. And we've had some testimony from the fire department talking about that condition being of concern to them, that they are not typically in favor of waiving things like the subdivision, the sort of maximum length of roadways. Now, I know this isn't a subdivision and that can be waived, but from a safety perspective, they're clearly concerned about the distance from Summer Street. The applicant did say that they would sprinkler the buildings, and so that's something that we need to consider as well. So I think I'm clearly not in favor of 6. Hearing the applicant was willing to go to 5, and then I also basically what we have is a representation from the applicant that they will appeal if we go to 4. And so I'm also trying to weigh what are the risks to the town associated with an appeal to the HAC. One of which wouldn't be beneficial to anybody really, other than the developer, which is that the HAC gets to basically review the application anew. We kind of lose control of the future of the project, and the applicant could be back with a 6-story two 6-story buildings approved by the HAC, and we have to consider that as an outcome here, I think. Other aspects of the appeal might be that it struck me that the development of this size it's kind of extraordinary that it didn't have to go through MIPA review, which would be a process that would be really beneficial to the town, because we would have the benefit of state agencies reviewing various impacts and suggesting mitigation that they would typically require of something of this size, and they would weigh in on things like traffic and safety and other aspects which would be helpful. So an appeal to the HAC also could result in MIPA review, so the applicant has to consider whether that they want to take that appeal. So there's countervailing things to be weighing here in terms of the health and safety aspects. I think the appeal risk is more of it's not really a local need per se, in the sense that it's not something that we can say, well, in light of the fact that there's an appeal risk, we can't do X or we shouldn't do Y. We should just be basing it on those 5 categories. So, not to belabor the point, but I think, you know, like others, I was our last meeting, I was pretty much ready to go on 5 stories, but I have concerns that similar to Suzanne and Jane about the safety aspects of it. And I think, you know, a careful review of our record, including the fire department commentary, you know, I think we can support that. It may not succeed on appeal, and we have to understand that that's a risk. But we'd have to, you know, carefully draft a finding around, based on the testimony we had, to support that, I think. And so we'd have to collaborate on that, I think.
Okay, thank you, Bob, and always well worded. I hang on every word you say.
I do too.
Oh boy, we're all in trouble. We're all in trouble.
Oh, first off, I hang on every word everybody says. You just say it real clearly.
It's like eloquent. You know, no, seriously, it's
So,
And
we're blessed to
legally,
have it.
it's top notch.
Yep.
okay, Drew Delaney, where are you coming in on this? What's your thoughts?
I definitely am not in favor of 6. I agree with the fear of restricting it to 4 stories and having the applicant appeal that, but based upon what I see elsewhere in the town, and my feeling that the fire department has presented us with enough information to say that going much higher than that would be a concern for them with the single egress and exit of the property. I believe the developer could utilize 4 and make that work and still fulfill the need for low-income housing for the town of Walpole, which the developer adamantly stated they were trying to provide housing for subsidized housing for individuals to live in the town of Walpole. I don't think that making a 4-story building would be presenting any challenges to still achieve that. So I think that the property should be maximized at 4 stories.
Okay, so I think I'm seeing where the board's heading on this, and just for where I was at, I was thinking 5. I was thinking that 5 might be okay, but I also look at the whole scale of the project, and I'm looking at 108 units of, you know, single family or duplex units also on it, not just the large buildings, and that's adding to the you know, adding to the safety concerns with these 2 large buildings. So although I could make a strong argument for 5, I think what's more important, at least moving forward, is that we get a decision that passes the zoning board. And, you know, we talked, I think everybody that spoke addressed the issue of an appeal of some sort. Appeal could be an appeal by the neighbors, it could be an appeal by the applicant. I think I'm comfortable setting that aside and saying, let those chips fall where they may. You know, I'm not going to try to think like anybody else. I'm going to think what's best for the community, and I can come around to what the rest of the board is saying. I'll just throw it, and you know, 5 stories. Your thoughts on, you know, 5 stories? I think that you've voiced your concerns, and I think it changes things. It's still a big development. It still has, like I said, 108 units. And the other thing, I'm not concerned about an appeal, but one of the things in an appeal process, the applicant would then have to show financially why it is not affordable. Is that correct, Judy Barrett? In an appeal, is that when the performers get done?
Yeah, they will make a case to the HAC that the condition makes the project uneconomic.
Yeah, okay.
Chairman Lee,
Yes,
can I, when I guess I clarify my statement that 4 stories above grade, because they had originally specified that they were intending on putting a parking garage below grade. Is that how we're clarifying that, or?
yeah, we're talking, yeah, floors of livable space. One of the things I don't know what's gonna happen. My guess is that if it's 4 stories, we're not gonna have underground parking because, you know, I don't know. I'm not gonna try to think what's gonna happen, but the whole idea of the underground parking was to put more, put more parking. They had to have more parking because they were going up in height. So, Ashley, do you have a procedural question or a comment?
I just have a comment, procedural question. If the board does go for 4 stories based on fire, I think it would be helpful if the board went back and reviewed all of the comment letters and the testimony that fire department has given after the second access was provided, and bring back quotes that you'd like to be captured, identifying the safety concerns.
Okay, yeah, I think that's an important part of the decision, explaining why we're doing that. So, okay. Amy Questle, you understand what we're talking about on that as far as increasing make sure it's clear what's happening there. Okay.
Right. So I think that's a great idea to go back and take a look at the fire department and any safety concerns. But we also, I think that Mr. Delaney and yourself just brought up a very good point regarding 4 stories. So, perhaps we look at a height of feet rather than stories. I'm not sure. So there's a give and a take here, and what we have here is that yes, they were able to put parking underneath, which gets rid of that, concrete desert look that we want to avoid. And so by not putting parking underneath and putting 4 stories, would they be creating more parking on site, that's visible? So I'm grappling with a way to figure that out. So maybe we just go with a certain feet, above grade or something like that.
Like the zoning bylaw, you limits it to residential floors.
Yeah. Right. So something, I don't know, something like that. But if you guys are going to go back and look at, the fire department, all of the letters and the opinions that they have given, then maybe we have some time to come up with, to figure that out.
I think.
Well, a 5-story is 70, correct? Am I correct on that? A 5-story is 70?
I think it's
Ballpark average?
Be about 60, Suzanne.
60.
A
Yeah.
5 foot is 60? Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just ask a question with regard to, I don't have any problem reviewing all of this, I truly don't. However, would we be reviewing this to give more strength and validation as we reach a decision? Or would we reviewing all of this so that we on the board could again rethink our thoughts? If it's because we need to strengthen our decision, then I'm wholeheartedly for it. If it's so we can review it all again, I honestly feel as though I don't know what difference that would make.
We're not gonna review it all again. We've had the public hearings. We're moving forward. We're done with that. I think really what we're trying to do now is have a decision that, you know, I'll be honest, a decision that the majority of the board can be comfortable with, because if we put together a decision and it gets voted down, that might happen. But I think what we need to do is have a decision that is the best that we can get. And what I'm hearing, you know, Jane, to me, the best decision I thought I might be able to get would be 5 stories. But what I'm hearing from the rest of the board is sounding like 4. And so that's the decision that I think we go forward with. You know, 4 stories of dwelling space, and you know, with a height, you know, of, you know, not less than, and not greater than, you know, 50 feet or whatever the number is. So, does that make sense, Jane?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So, is there any more discussion? Let's take a look at A3, and what that talks about is, right now, the draft that I have says a 5-story maximum height with 90 apartment units. But it seems like what the board's comfortable with is 4 stories maximum height with, I need to pull out my calculator. How many units are coming off of that?
Figure out how many came off the first one.
The 32 units came off when we went from 6 to 5, so another 32 would come off.
Okay. So down to 50, 58. Which is still, let's be honest, that's a large building when I know what a 33 unit building looks like, and this is still a large building. And Bob, do you know what for the 70 units, how many came off of that one?
Oh, sorry. The number I gave, the 32, was a total number, not a not split between the buildings.
What were they? They were 108 and 84. Geez, it's pretty sad that I remember those numbers.
Those numbers sound very familiar, Mr. Chairman. I think you might be correct.
So we've all looked at the plan.
They should be also in the procedural, in the findings. Yes, building 1 consists of 108, building 2 is 84. So we went from 108 to 90, which gives us 18 units. And then we went from 84 to 70, which gives us 14 units. So that means that, 90 would go to
72.
72. And
70 would go to 56.
Okay.
And as far as the townhouses, I think the board members we were pretty comfortable with the townhouses. You know, they are jammed in there. They're close to each other, but I think board members were okay with the layout of that. Does anybody have any concerns about those?
Well, you get to know what all your neighbors are having for dinner.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's where we're at on the heights of the heights of the building, and we're now down to 4 stories with 72 apartments in one and 56 in the other. Okay? We're not gonna, and the parking ratio would stay the same, so it really comes down to if the applicant decides to build this, it'll be the parking ratio, whether they're underground or whether they are, you know, surface parking. People understand that, and are people okay with that?
Hopefully this eliminates the pay for parking.
Well,
That was pretty different for me in a 40B.
so, okay,
So the other,
Oh,
go ahead, Bob.
no, I was just gonna say, you know, the reduction in the number of units would presumably reduce the amount of parking demand to some level, so they may choose not to build underground parking there, but, you know, I don't believe they were able to accommodate all 6 stories in that underground, parking area. So, you know, they may choose not to go forward with and their final plans with the full, you know, construction of that. But I don't think that necessarily means that there's going to be additional surface parking elsewhere. It just might be that they don't need that parking anymore.
Yep.
Okay. Amy Questle, did you have a comment or wanted to say something?
so, I did, Mr. Chairman, just, we were talking about, the connection of the number of stories to the parking. I think we also need to consider the connection of the number of stories and the number of units to the offsite mitigation. So, I just wanted to make sure that the board is aware that, that the offsite mitigation was an offer. And I would be very concerned that, that if we will require it in this decision. However, I'm not sure that, I'm not at all confident that, the Housing Appeals Committee will require, the offsite mitigation. So I just want to make sure, it's my job to make sure that you guys know all of the information. And so I just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
John, if I might
Yeah, go ahead.
interject something here again. I fully understand that if this goes to arbitration, and we should lose, and the developer should come back, and so on and so on. In all likelihood, we will not get that mitigation money to fix that square. However, my feeling on that is this should not be a consideration whatsoever, because if we were to vote for this just because of that, we would be putting the onus, or most of the responsibility, on the backs of those people in South Walpole. In other words, if we said, well, let's do it because we don't want to lose the money. We don't want to lose the money on the backs of the people down there. If we lost it and the town had to pay the full freight, so be it. Everybody in the town bears a part of that. So, you know, I don't really feel as though that should even be, I mean, we should be aware of it. But I don't feel that should be any part of our consideration, to be honest with you.
Okay. I probably agree with you. You know, so I don't know how other board members feel. We spent a lot of time talking about traffic. There was a solution to solve some of the traffic issues in South Walpole, but I'll also say this: the people of South Walpole made it very clear that they didn't like it, and that's really not for the zoning board at this point. That is a road commissioners, the selectmen. That's their decision how to move forward on that. But I think Amy Questel's making the point that the money might not be there based on, you know, this decision. But we'll see. To be honest, I don't like the idea of having linkage to something that's off-site and really not what's going on here. So we're looking at the site.
Well, if I could, the development is going to have off-site impacts. There's no question about it. I mean, even the traffic studies that were provided indicate as much. And there's been a lot of discussion with the town about, you know, what might be done to mitigate that. And I don't think it's uncommon at all to require a developer to contribute to mitigate the impacts. Now, I know this is a 40B project, and they may have an argument that, you know, the project cost is such that, you know, we go underwater if we have to pay $500,000 for mitigation. But, you know, I don't think we're necessarily limited to just the four corners of the site. I think we can consider offsite impacts and consider what a reasonable condition might be to impose to mitigate that. If it's based in one of those 5 categories I talked about, health and safety, and I think safety with respect to traffic is a legitimate concern given some of the testimony we had about accidents there and proximity to the railroad and just the inevitable queuing that's going to occur there, because it's quite a number of additional cars kind of entering at one point in the roadway that, you know, are going to have trouble. It's just it's not far between, you know, to go from Summer Street down to make the right to get out to Route 1. And so there's queuing issues, and that also raises safety concerns. And to me, it's also a planning concern. How are we going to address? How are we as a town going to address? So that's certainly a local need from my perspective. Is, you know, good planning and good, you know, health and safety measures. And so I do think we can look offsite. I guess that's all I'd say. I'm not saying what the right amount is or whether there should be a trade-off in light of if the board ultimately decides that 4 stories is the right number, whether that number should be less than 500,000 or more or stay the same. I don't have a view on that right now, but I do think it's fair game to look offsite.
You know, if I may, I agree with you in the fact that if it has to be done, it has to be done. My point is, it should not be the tipping point for us to necessarily pass this just because we would lose that. Because again, I feel if we did that, it tells those in South Walpole, stuff it. And not only stuff it, but we're not, the rest of the taxpayers aren't going to have to help to pay for this. It's on your back. I think, yes, we can consider it, but I do not think it should be a defining. I really don't. I think it's wrong. I think fine if they want to do something, mitigate. You know, a lot of different projects have been on the CBA. They're going back a few years. They've done, you know, paving here. They did something up at the DPW. I don't have a problem with that. But when it comes to be, if it was the defining decision, I don't think it's right.
Yeah, and it is not the defining condition on this. I think we're going to leave that condition in and see how it goes. It was our town council who just said that, you know, she doesn't think that it will come out intact. But, you know, Amy, do you have any advice on that condition? What we could do to, if we scale back the size of the building, is there a way to prorate or make it proportional for the additional money for redoing the square?
You know, I wouldn't want to. I really wouldn't want to speculate. I mean, right now he's offered the 500,000, but you know, again, I'm sure that's offer is no longer valid. We've gone from 300 units to 236 units. So I don't have his pro forma. None of us do at this point. So we don't know if this is going to make this project uneconomical. I'm assuming that will be his argument at the Housing Appeals Committee. You know, one thing that I do want to point out, and I am most certain that this is not going to go over well, but unfortunately, that's my job. And that's what I have to do is I have to point out everything to you guys so you guys can make a valid and a well-reasoned decision. Is the fact that as members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, you represent the entire town of Walpole. So I understand that this is in a neighborhood, and I understand that the neighborhood is going to be impacted, and the degree of the impact I would not argue with. However, the job of the Zoning Board of Appeals is sometimes you have to take a step back and you have to decide, what's better for the entire town. And so I'm just throwing that out there. And so, with regard to the offsite mitigation, with regard to the density, with regard to all of these things, I am just, I'm just advising you to consider this from an entire town standpoint, not just South Walpole. And the reason why I say that is because that is how the HAC will look at this. So, I'm asking you to do that, but I'm also warning you. That's exactly, that's how the HAC is going to look at this, unfortunately. So, so our decision needs to come as a decision based upon the entire town.
Can I ask a question? Are they allowed to bring up the mitigation during a pro forma, the off-site mitigation?
No, the pro forma will be whatever.
Just the project. Okay.
The project, if they bring that in, we will bring up the fact, we will counter with the fact that was an offer.
Okay.
But that will.
HAC can vacate that condition.
That will be I was just
Right.
going to say, that will be the
Right.
first thing that will come off the top.
Okay.
And then, because the HAC doesn't want to be bothered with, with that, so that will come off, and then we'll look into the uneconomical provision.
Okay.
And on our position, we have to prove that the local concern is outweighs the uneconomical condition, if any.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question, Chairman Lee? At the conclusion of the last meeting, the applicant's attorney said that they would appeal the off-site mitigations for the project. So, and I believe that was just based on a reduction in the height of the buildings, or was it,
Yes.
no matter what, there was an intent to appeal that the amount?
So it was my understanding that if there was a reduction in the height of the building, then the appeal would also appeal the condition that requires the $500,000 donation for the offsite mitigation.
And Amy, that was reduced from 5 to 4.
5 to 4, correct?
Not at 5.
It was my understanding that at 5 he's not going to appeal. I thought he said that more than once.
So, Chairman Lee, my opinion regarding the off-site mitigation, if I can add that, is that 500,000 doesn't seem like a lot to me for the impact that this project would have on that area. I'm sure that the town would still be required to incorporate some of their own involvement into that. And the only thing I guess I would wonder if it would be better to tie it to the percentage of units that were allowed as opposed to a flat fee in the wordage of the condition, in that sense that we're permitting X amount of units and this is what we would think would be a suitable amount, as opposed to saying we came up with this estimated fee of 500,000, and I apologize if I'm reading that incorrectly, but that's, I guess, just, I wonder if that would be more easily negotiated down the line, or maybe not.
No, I would say that that if it's going to go down to 4 stories, any any offsite mitigation would be contested. And I think that maybe our best bet is to do some kind of ratios. So the 500, just so you guys can recall, the $500,000 came from 50% of the estimated cost. So the cost to rework that entire intersection was going to be approximately $1 million. So the offer was for 50, and then we were going to look into waiving the $500,000 worth of building department fees to be used to for the town's share. But it's I don't think that I'm not even sure that we want to even bother ourselves with figuring all that out, because I think that he was pretty clear that that he would not be funding offsite mitigation if it went down to 4 stories.
So it really doesn't matter at this point,
right?
You know, on that. What I do recall the applicant said was that he would appeal if it was 4. He
Correct. Never
said he wouldn't appeal other things or anything like that. But I also, that's what he said. That's what he said in the public hearing. So.
Okay. And if I could, Mr. Chairman, just, we've talked about the height of the buildings and the health and safety aspects of it, and sort of combing the record and seeing, what's in it with regard to that issue. And I think, as we're deliberating, we might want to see what the record, everything in the record that it speaks to that issue, and then as a board decide whether it should be 4 or 5. You know what I mean? In other words, I think everybody here has their impressions of the case, and I think that that's obviously very valid. But I think when we see it in writing, and when we see what exactly is in the record from the fire department and other aspects of the record, then, we can make a judgment as to whether, we think 4 is going to be defensible on that record. I don't mean to reopen the whole thing, but I just everybody should be operating from a common set of facts, and I think that would just be helpful to guide the board's final decision.
Shirley.
Yes, go ahead.
There was a memo provided that I can send to you all that was a fair share estimate based off of the traffic impact. If you want to get a sense of how this project's broken down from the actual impact to a no-build situation.
Yeah, you can send that out. I'm not going to take a look at it tonight.
Sure.
But yeah, that would be helpful. It's all part of the public record already. Yeah,
yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So I think right now where we stand on the decision, it's for the heights of the building. What board members are comfortable is the 4 stories and 4 stories with 72 and 56 units. So, okay. So let's move on. Let's take a look at other conditions that we people had questions or concerns about.
I had a comment on condition A4. The last 2 sentences, I think we should say, I'm not sure exactly when the homeowners association is going to be formed. It may be a while, or after a certain number of units are sold. So I'd like that to say the applicant and any subsequently formed homeowners association is required to provide resident visitor parking, just so there's not a gap in time between occupancy starting and the homeowners association being formed.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And then I guess I was, the last sentence I wasn't quite sure, sort of how we would enforce that, or how? I'm not sure that, can we require that the homeowners association, you know, tow somebody's car? I don't know if that's a condition that we can enforce, and I just can, you know, that just struck me as, in reading it, I wasn't sure how we would do that.
I'm not really sure that we could enforce that. We could put it in the homeowners association documents. And so by leaving it in here, the homeowner, the applicant knows that will be included in the homeowners documents.
Okay.
The homeowners association documents.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
It will be a problem on game day.
Right.
Yeah. You had some wording that was to prevent stadium parking now. What do we have for?
Didn't she put it under E something, E13? If I'm correct?
No, so under A4, we had I had details, and that they had to be there an hour before the event, an hour after the event, things like that. But then the police chief kind of weighed in on the fact that the details are usually paid for by Kraft, and so what they would prefer is to come up with a plan for the Gillette events, which is that's what we talked about last week, or yeah, I think it was last week. So we talked about the HOA and the police department setting up a plan for Gillette events to be reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
That's what the chief does now. He meets with the person that's in charge of events at the stadium, and he gets the schedule, and it's all kind of laid out from there. So they just need to be involved in that procedure.
Correct. And we will add that to A4.
Yeah. And that's where the stickers came up, which I thought was a great idea, because the chief said, how am I going to know with all these cars going in there if they live there? So it's a good idea.
I think it was your idea.
Like a beach sticker or a dump sticker.
No, I think it was your idea originally.
Yeah, I was on the phone. I don't know if it was the chief or me, but yeah, I think it'll work though.
I do too.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything further in A, but I did have something on B2, but I don't want to jump too far ahead of everybody else if others have comments on section A.
Bob, yep, let's move along to, what do you have, B2? We can go there.
Yeah, so on B2, it talks about the units that should meet the criteria for inclusion on the subsidized housing inventory. And I believe with respect to the rental part of this, all of those units will count on the subsidized housing inventory. So I think instead of, I believe the first part of this talks about 75 units, 48 of the rental apartments. In other words, I think this is just accounting for 25% of the apartment units and not 100%.
Okay, Judy Barrett, you want to weigh in on that?
Does that make sense?
All of the units in a rental project should count on the SHI.
So I think in that first sentence it says upon completion of the project and in perpetuity 75 units, and then it has a parens talking about the breakdown, and it says 48 rental apartments, but that should be a full number of rental apartments, because they won't be affordable units, but they do count on the inventory.
Right, but they need to be designated as affordable for inclusion on DHCD's subsidized housing inventory. So 25% of the rental units have to be designated as affordable. So whatever that number would be now. So now we're looking at I apologize. We're looking at I need to do 72 plus, 72 plus 56.
Amy,
Yes.
can we just say that the sum of those units, including the truly affordable ones, will be restricted for occupancy and affordable to households with incomes at or below 80% of AMI?
Yeah, we could do that.
And then
Yeah.
just the second sentence that would say, something about the number of units that actually count, which would then include all the rental units. I just think they're two separate issues. I know what you're saying, though. You are right that at least 25% have to be designated as affordable.
Right.
Bob is right that in the rental development, all the, you can fix this. It's fine. It's a minor change, but it's a good point.
I just want to get full credit for whatever.
But you know that anyway. The board can't take away that, how they're
Right.
counted, so no worries.
Okay. I'll revise that one.
And it looks like it's 32 units that will be affordable. That's 25% of the total apartments at this point.
Okay. Great. 32.
And then on B3, it talks about obtaining approval of the subsidizing agency on an affirmative fair housing marketing plan. And I think it should say prior to the sale or rental of any units, because there'll be a marketing plan associated with the rental units as well as.
That's correct.
You're right.
There'll be a different plan, but it's still both subject to affirmative fair housing marketing.
You're on a roll, Bob.
All right, well, I'll keep going then. So I guess I was just thinking sort of bigger picture on section C about the submission requirements, and we talk about in, I guess, C1B, we identify a couple of, like the NIPD's permit, and I'm wondering if we're better off just saying, that the applicant should provide any and all, federal and state permits, because there will be more than the NIPD's permit, and I guess I just want all of the information to come to the town. So I don't know if we're better off trying to flag things that we think they need, or if it's just better to have like a catch-all that you shall comply with all laws and provide copies of all state and federal permits required for completion of the project, or something more general.
So maybe we could put any and all federal and state permits, and then we could just add in that last sentence about the SWIP, because that's important about having to employ a competent person on the property, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Because the SWIP is
Yeah.
created. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No,
I'll take out the first sentence and I'll put the general one, any and all federal and state permits required.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm not quite sure myself what I don't even want to proffer a guess as to what the
Yeah,
other permits are. I don't know if the MBTA is going to want to,
Right.
have a look at this. So if they do, great. If they don't, that's not us for us to judge, really. Sorry, just flipping ahead to I guess I'm going to jump all the way to E6 if unless anybody else wants to jump in before then.
Actually, I have something at E4.
Okay.
This is about retaining walls. 4 feet or greater in height shall be designed by a professional structural engineer. What's the thought on fence, some sort of protective fence on top of any wall greater than 4 feet? Board member, I think most of them have fence where there are retaining walls. Most of them are, I believe, along the rail side of the property, and there is a fence there. But I just want to, if there's any retaining wall greater than 4 feet, I think it should have a fence or something on it.
Or landscaping, maybe?
Not even I'm talking about somebody falling off or a vehicle, something going off.
Yeah.
So,
Do we know exactly where that's located? I suppose it doesn't matter.
so it really, and I think they're covered because what I recall, the retaining walls, like I said, were along the train tracks, and there was fence. But I just think that if you have a retaining wall of 4 feet, you should have at least a 4-foot chain link fence on that for safety reasons.
Might fall under a building code that might be required, but it wouldn't hurt to add the wordage in their condition.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Bob.
Sorry about that. So on E6, E6, it says appropriate signage shall be shown on the final plans. And I think rather than saying the applicant has requested, I think we should say the board has approved certain waivers.
Okay.
And I know we have an attachment that'll list the waivers, but
Yes, we do. That's fine.
and I did take a look back at some of the traffic reports and analysis, and I can send them to Amy in an email, but the applicant had agreed to undertake certain TDM measures, like having a traffic coordinator and certain, mostly administrative, encouraging people to take public transportation stuff. So we could just excise those and put them as additional conditions in it.
Oh, great. If you could send those to me, that would be great.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped ahead to basically that's section F.
That would be like F10 plus.
Right.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
And let's see. Yeah, I jump ahead then to the offsite traffic mitigation condition that we were kicking around before. We'd obviously have to adjust the number of units that are reflected there based on whatever we decide on the building height.
Mm-hmm.
My only thought was whether we want to have the triggering event be the receipt of a building permit for the 50% number as opposed to an occupancy. I guess it's more directly related to occupancy, so I understand that.
Yeah.
But presumably once I guess I'm concerned that they could build the big building and have, they could have whatever 75 units in there, but only occupancy for 60 or something, but yet they're on their way to marketing those units so that so I could see an argument for building permit, but I just thought I'd raise that one. And then in the decision where it talks about permit for the construction of 300 units, that'll be changed. And those are my comments to this point. Thanks so much, Amy, for putting this together. I know it's not an easy task to going through all this stuff, and so it's really helpful for the board and for me. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
And Amy, if we can just go back to E12, that is about construction hours with school children walking in the area. I really want to make sure that is under the new one, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And deleting exterior.
Exterior, right? I already crossed that out in mine, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I think what we need to do now is get a revised copy of this, and then the board can go through it, make sure we're very clear on what we're saying. Is there anything that any board members think we're missing at this point on this?
Do we need to do the waivers, the waiver for the height on the waivers list?
So we should do the waivers last,
Okay.
because when you guys give me direction, then I'll know what waivers are necessary and what are not.
Okay, gotcha.
So we already went through the waivers, and so we went through the waivers, and that sort of gave us the bones for the decision. And so at this point, Amy, are you saying that we need to go back through the waivers and?
No, you are correct. You are correct, Mr. Chairman. So I have to see if there's any waivers that have changed because of the height reduction and the reduction down to 236 units.
And surely there was that one waiver that was added for the height of the fence in the side yard. Since
The 8-foot height, the 8-foot fence, which was requested by the abutters.
And Mr. Chairman, I believe there was some conditions circulated regarding trail access from the Conservation Commission that I think they look great to me, but I think I don't know if those have been worked in yet, but I don't think
That's a good point. Those should be, Amy, do you have those?
I did. I put they're in my electronic version. I haven't sent them out. It'll be in the one that I send out to you now. And so I will send. I'll make the changes that we've discussed tonight. Plus, I have the conditions that Landis has approved. And I will put all of this together. So, do you want me to send you a red line with all of the new things, or is it easier just to have a clean version, or both? How do you guys want it?
Well, for me, because I was Walpole High, I need it lined out, the one we're getting rid of with a line, and then red for the new one.
Got it.
Is
Okay,
that okay with everyone else? It's a Walpole High version.
I can do that.
You sure it wasn't blue and orange? No, it's not.
Simple.
Okay, so yeah, that'll be helpful, and then once we can see exactly what changes and where we're at after tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so does anybody have anything else on this draft decision? Okay. We came into this with a 95% solution. I think we're almost there. So let's take a look at it. When Amy Questle, any idea when we'll be able to get this from you?
I can do it as soon as possible. So
Okay.
I'll try.
You're gonna do it?
I'll endeavor to have it to you tomorrow morning at some point.
Well, I might be able to buy Amy some more time because I won't get her that list of stuff until tomorrow. So,
actually, it's all Bob's fault. But
Yeah.
actually, I actually can't do it tomorrow morning. I actually have a mediation tomorrow morning, so that I just remembered. So,
It's not all about us.
but it's all Bob's fault. So once Bob gets that to me, I will get you guys something.
Okay. You know, we do have another zoning board meeting for 48 cases. Well, actually, we also have Moose Hill on Wednesday night. So what I was thinking was we could, you know, have a discussion in the open session again, if that's what, you know, but let's get a copy of it, go over it. But I think we're getting as close as we can on this. So we're getting there. Okay. Board members, Ashley, it seems like you want to say something. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So Amy Messier is going to send you all the, so what I heard at the beginning was that because of concerns from the fire department and comments from the fire department, there are board members who want to limit this to 4 stories. So Amy is going to send you those comment letters, and anything from those that Amy Questle can add into our decision would be really helpful.
Okay. Judy Barrett, can I ask you a question not on this topic? If you have a 40B, how many times can the applicant continue it?
Well, the applicant can request as many continuances as if they want. You know, the board, I guess, has to decide on a case-by-case basis whether to grant them. But
there's no limit. They can do it. Okay.
yeah, they can. I mean, it's to their peril, I suppose, if they want to keep dragging it out. But
Well, we're coming up on one that's asked for 3, so I you know.
that's not
kinda
uncommon. That's not
Yeah.
uncommon.
Okay. I know our planning board makes you refile if you've asked that many times, so I just didn't know if there was any different rules for 40Bs.
Yeah, he doesn't need to refile.
Okay, thank you.
So, for everybody, as soon as we get a copy of this, please review the red line version of it. And we'll have a public hearing on Wednesday if we want to discuss it. It is on the agenda for under other business, so we could discuss it if we want. But we might end up having to hold a separate meeting to finalize things with this. But I think we're very close. Any final guidance, Judy Barrett? Any final guidance tonight for us?
No, I just do agree with Ashley that I think you want to make very clear for yourselves. Can you line up for each of your findings and the conditions that you're imposing? What's the documentation and the record? Just so you go into this knowing full well, you know, the possibility that you may end up in an appeal. What do you have as documentation for what you did? Just make sure that's clear, because there's been a lot of memos and reports and, you know, testimony, and you just want to make sure that this is not just, and don't take this the wrong way, but it has to be based on more than what you feel.
Right.
As board members, you've got to have evidence in the record. So given how things kind of changed around with this project and various reports, just make sure if you had to defend this case to the HAC, do you have the documentation you need? Since somebody's going to have to do that.
So that includes reading a lot of minutes too, I guess.
I think you want to make sure that the record supports what you're doing. Because as I said earlier, you know, you got to square the decision with the jurisdiction under the statute and the record of the case.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Amy Questle, anything else for us from your perspective?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ashley?
I just want to confirm, for Wednesday, Amy, has the agenda been posted with this subject on it?
So the agenda for the 14th, for this Wednesday, for the 7th, does not have anything under other discussion items, and it is posted.
So do we have time to post that and still have a meeting Wednesday?
No, and so we won't be discussing this on Wednesday. Simple as that.
Okay.
We need to have 48 hours, and I thought that it was. I hadn't seen the agenda, but I thought it was on the agenda because that was a possibility. We have a busy night Wednesday anyway, so we got plenty of time.
Sorry, should we continue this next Monday the 12th and also post it for the 14th? So next Monday and Wednesday, have both those days posted?
Board members, what's your feel? I'd be okay with next Monday, and we might not even need we might not even need Wednesday the 14th.
Mr. Chairman, I am not available on Monday, the 12th, so I'm not sure if that's matters.
It does matter.
Okay.
You
Wednesday,
available on,
14th?
you available on the 14th, Amy?
Yes, I can. If anything, I would be a little bit late, but I could be here definitely by 7:30.
Okay, so why don't we do this? This hearing is already closed, so we're not continuing.
Yeah.
We're just going to have the next meeting for deliberations on the 14th of next week, the 14th.
So, Mr. Chair, just so you know, I'm not available on the 14th, but I can communicate with Amy between now and then. So, she's far more important than I am. So
That's not really true.
no, I mean at this juncture, I mean, really, I can talk to Amy anytime. So
Judy, are you doing our master plan?
I am.
Nice.
I know. I'm excited.
Congratulations. You'll do
We're
a
all-
great job.
We're all
Good.
excited.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Okay,
think you'll do a good job.
anything else for tonight's meeting? And we await the red line version. We'll meet back. Well, we're going to meet on Wednesday night for a regular zoning board meeting, but the next time we're going to discuss this will be next week. Amy Messier, will you make sure we have that on the agenda for next Wednesday night,
Sure.
The 14th.
the 14th? Okay. Anybody have anything else? Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So
No. Oh,
Second.
moved. Wait, time.
Amy Messier, go ahead.
we do have another item on the agenda under discussion items for the Sean Reardon Tetra Tech.
Thank you, Amy.
For today?
Is that for Doopy? What is that for? Doopy Street?
Yes.
We need more money for the peer review, and we need you to approve it.
Okay, how much is it for the peer review?
I don't know who you're asking the question to. However, I have Sean's email up here, and they're requesting $6,000 of a budget increase to cover the cost to date and expected work through issuing the board's decision. So $6,000.
Okay, could I have a motion for peer review for Doopy Street 40B and additional $6,000 to be paid by the applicant?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Jane. Any further discussion on this? Okay. Okay, roll call vote on the additional funds for the Doopy Street 40B. Jane Coffey,
Aye.
Suzanne Murphy,
Murphy, aye.
Drew Delaney,
Aye.
Bob Fitzgerald,
Aye.
and I'm John Lee. Aye. Okay, good. So please let the applicant know that we need to have more funds for the peer review on that. Okay. Anything else, Amy Messier?
No.
Okay. Very good. So we have a motion to adjourn, and this does not require a roll call vote. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, so carried. Good night, everybody. I'll see you Wednesday.
Right.
Thank you.